Hi, ever wonder what it's like to work another profession or live in the underworld? Listen to unsuspecting riders give a 10 to 15 minute personal masterclass as I spontaneously interview them as they enter my taxi. I'm your host, Simon Rushton, and this is Taxi Chronicles. Morning. Yes, we're back with another episode and another rider. Today we're honoured to have a lady who deals with forests and forest regulations, to put it nicely, but let her explain. So welcome, Sally. Nice to have you.
Hi.
So how did you get into the industry and what motivates you?
Good questions. So what motivates me? A combination of things. One, the massively important role that forests play in helping prevent climate change. And secondly, just there's something about working with people who manage land, so farmers and forest dwellers and rural communities, which is just incredibly uplifting. The sense that forests are a communal resource and the sense of shared stewardship, I guess. So I've come through it for sort of various routes. I've worked on different bits of land use, natural capital, agriculture for the last few years. And then this is a relatively new job. I just started in the autumn, but with a real focus on bringing the international community together to think about how those kind of richer countries like the UK can really work with countries who still have a lot of their forest resources left but tend to be in the developing world, and how we can work together to really make sure that what we've got left of those really precious forest resources stay standing.
I have to ask, on that note, see, like we have the Lake District, we have vast lands of open moors. Shouldn't we be planting trees all around there? Because I understand that originally England was covered in trees.
So there's definitely a massive role for domestic tree planting. And we're just going past Streatham Common at the moment, and I know they've been planting trees here. The moors is a complicated one. So you always have to balance where you plant trees with what's there already. And there's a really incredible soil ecosystem called peatlands, which covers about 10% of the UK, including large parts of the Peak District, some of the Lake District, and most of Scotland. And peatland is basically one big enormous carbon store, and what you don't want to be doing is planting trees on peatland. But definitely where you've got other space, and I know there's been a big kind of lot of environmental noise about...
Sorry, why though? Why wouldn't you want to plant trees on peatland with carbon?
Basically, peatlands are a wetland type habitat, and if you plant trees on them, they begin to dry out, and when they dry out, they release all of the carbon that they have stored inside them.
Don't trees live on carbon?
So trees are also a massively important carbon store, and what's really exciting about trees is you can plant them, and as they grow, they extract carbon from the atmosphere and they lock it into the wood that they're using. But if you plant them on peatlands, what they end up doing is releasing this big store of carbon from underground into the atmosphere. So overall, you get more damage than you do benefit.
Wouldn't the tree itself, even though it's released in it from the old dead trees, wouldn't it capture it to help it grow?
Generally speaking, that's true, but not on peatlands.
Okay.
So you want to treat, like with all plants, you want to put them in the right place. And I think, real opportunity for the UK in thinking about how we might get more trees into farmland, for example, because they have multiple benefits, as well as being carbon store. As the weather gets warmer, they provide shade for animals, for example. They help to ensure that our agricultural soils stay in place, they don't get washed away or in East Anglia, blown away. And then, of course, they have biodiversity benefits. But we haven't traditionally in this country grown lots of crops from trees. We used to have lots and lots of orchards, but a lot of those have been grubbed up over the past few decades. But thinking about things like nuts, so walnuts and hazelnuts. There's definitely scope to be doing more in that as well, where there's real opportunities for people to grow businesses, so trees that bring income in for farmers, for example.
Okay. Does it say, you spoke about nuts, trees that grow nuts, how long does it take for a tree to mature if you're growing a nut tree?
Good question, and I think really that's massively going to be at the forefront of any farmer's mind, right? So I get a weekly vegetable box delivered to me from a company called Riverford, and I know their CEO has just planted a mixture of walnut trees and hazelnut trees, and he should be able to crop the hazelnut trees within 4 or 5 years, but the walnut trees probably not for 20.
Yeah.
And so there's a real need to plan.
You're paying for that land, land tax. For 20 years, unless the government gives you a concession on the basis that you will produce, start a new market.
Exactly. And so the UK government is looking at the moment at, having left the EU, the government's looking at how we incentivise farmers in a different way. So up till now, we've paid them for how much land they own. But instead looking at how do we pay for public goods is what it's described as. So things that all of us benefit from, whether it's carbon storage or clean water, clean air, biodiversity. And those are the kind of schemes where you might see government providing support for a long-term investment like tree planting.
The last two questions, we're coming to the end of the ride. This is very interesting, by the way. What have you learned that you wish you knew when you had started?
Oh, that's such a good question. Do you know what? I think I'm still learning. I learn something new every day. There's something about learning from each other, taking what we already do well and doing more of that, and not thinking we always have the right answers, but recognising that a load of people are doing the right things already. And so what we really need to be able to do is work out who those people are and how to spread the message about what they're already doing.
Okay, just to jump in there, I used to live in Kenya, and on the coast, it takes 10 years for a coconut tree to grow. But they have different laws in Kenya, depending on the tribe and the religion. And one thing with the coastal law, even if you bought my land, I still own the trees. Because the coconut trees bring life. So if you want to chop down the trees, you have to talk to me.
Wow.
I can come on your land and harvest my coconuts and do whatever I have to do regarding the coconut trees, and you can't tell me anything.
So that allows for a really long-term investment, whatever happens with the land.
So that's one of the, but you would have to be of that culture, that tribe, for that to work. Do you see what I mean?
I do.
Because different tribes inland have different policies. But my last question is, what's the impact you want to have on the world?
I think it would be great if, as a result of the work I'm doing with other countries, all governments committed to halt the deforestation of natural forests and to have really good planting plans that meant we were bringing trees back into the right places in all countries across the globe.
I hear what you're saying. It's because the Kenyan government brought that in, that no trees were allowed to thing, and a lot of people in rural areas suffered.
Totally agree.
And I think, from what I saw in certain countries like Kenya, there just needs to be a mass on planting. A mass.
And you're totally right to correct me, because whatever we do, there has to be a balance between people's livelihoods and what we do about the climate and biodiversity. And it will only work if livelihoods are seen to be right at the centre of that. So whatever governments commit to, we need to ensure that people have sustainable livelihoods and that we're able to continue farming and producing food, but in ways that are less damaging.
I know I'm really interested because I know we're at the end of the time. Is there a policy like for every tree someone chops down, they must at least plant 10 trees or something like that?
Not yet, but wouldn't that be great?
That to me, that's the kind of basic thing that I would have thought would have been there in the first place.
And wherever you can stop works.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot. It's been great interviewing you.
Thank you ever so much.
And we wish you well. We hope you liked that interview. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to get the latest daily episode. Ever considered investing in the continent with the fastest growing economy and population on Earth? The same continent that holds 30% of the world's known natural resources? Then listen to our sister podcast, Africa Investor Stories, where you will hear real investors with real stories from around the world share their experience of investing in Africa. We post Monday and Thursday at 10 a.m.